This video is intended to teach you how and why poets use rhythm. The earliest Western poetry was intended to be performed, not read, and so the sound of a poem in classical style Western poetry and in much of the Western current tradition is actually extremely important, and an important part of that sound is the rhythm. So we're going to start by learning to recognize the most common kinds of rhythm. Imagine you're playing a game of tag, kick the can, hide and seek, and somebody has to be it. Well, at least American, United States children have a tried and true way of doing that. We do a little chant while we're standing in a circle, and while we're chanting, the person who starts out the game puts their fist on everybody else's fist, or they point at the toes of everybody in the circle, and at the end of the chant, you eliminate somebody from the group, or you possibly pick somebody to be it. So, for instance, bubblegum, bubblegum in a dish. How many pieces do you wish? And then, of course, whoever is there when you say wish will give a number, and then you'll count them out, and whoever is at the end of that list is unfortunately it, or is eliminated from the group of people being selected for it. And here, what you see me doing is highlighting all the places in that little chant where, if you're using a fist to kind of bounce on everybody else's fist, you actually do that bounce, or where, if you're pointing to people's feet, you point directly to a person's foot. And these little places I'm highlighting in red. And I'm doing it for another one here that is perhaps more familiar to different groups. I've found over the years that different groups of people have heard different ones. This one was really common when I was growing up. Engine, engine number 9, going down Chicago line. If the train should jump the tracks, would you want your money back? Yes or no? Let's speed the video up a little and then do the same process that we just did with bubblegum, bubblegum in a dish for engine, engine number 9, right? Engine, engine number 9, going down Chicago line. If the train should jump the tracks, would you want your money back? Yes or no? And then, my mother said to pick the very best one, and you are not it. And you'll notice that I have stressed almost every syllable in that last line, and that's because when you used to do it when I was growing up, you would actually fist bump somebody at every single syllable. Now let's take a look at a much more interesting use of rhythm in a poem written in a kind of childlike rhythm, County Cullen's Incident. Once riding in old Baltimore, heart filled, head filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean looking straight at me. And here, let's do a quick analysis of the rhythm, right? You'll notice that I've put in some pink elements here, and those represent the words that have an optional rhythm. That is, you could choose to stress those words, or you could choose not to. So I could say, once riding in old Baltimore, heart filled, head filled with glee, right? And that would make sense. But one doesn't have to read it that way, and if you're reading it in a childlike way, it's easiest to do it without them. Now that uncertainty about how to choose where to emphasize your syllables mirrors the uncertainty of the narrator here, who is at a moment where something is going to happen. They're seeing a Baltimorean looking straight at them, and they're not sure what's going to happen next. And as we hear what happens next, we realize that the narrator was right to be nervous, to be uncertain. As we read that, now I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger. And so I smiled at him, but he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I apologize for the use of that word. I saw the whole of Baltimore, from May until December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. Now, another way that I could read the emphases on this last line of the second stanza would be, but he poked out his tongue and called me N-word. So there's uncertainty there. And in fact, this is the most diverse line in terms of rhythm in the whole poem. And then we look at the next stanza, and we see that you have the least interesting rhythm, the least complex rhythm in the whole poem. So we go from that moment where the narrator is shocked and upset, where the rhythm falls into a sort of chaos, and then we go to this period of numbness and not being able to pay attention to the world, and there we see that the rhythm is perfectly even. This poem is an excellent illustration of how just the manipulation of the expectations of the speaker and the listener can create a companion message to the message of the actual poem. He has, in using these small changes, mirrored the feelings of the protagonist of the poem. Now there's 7 kinds of rhythmic sounds that are particularly important for the analysis of and appreciation of most Western classical poetry, and the first 2 are the duplet types, and duplet as in doubles as in 2, right? These are your 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, right? Stressed syllable, unstressed syllable. The other kind of duplet, it would be unstressed, stressed. So we have and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In addition, we have triplets. And triplets, just as they are in human beings, in rhythm represent groups of 3. And triplets can be constructed either 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which, by the way, is waltz rhythm, or they can be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or they can be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The use of regular rhythm in a poem does aid in memorization, but far more important, it allows the poet to set up expectations and then shatter them. So what do you notice in this line? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Of course, you notice the 1, 2, 3 in and among the 1 and 2 and 3 and. It's the thing that's different that stands out. And if you have a little piece of your poem that stands out because of how it sounds, then you could draw attention to whatever it is that the actual words and meaning are saying at the same moment. Now, there's only 2 more pieces of vocabulary that I want to introduce here as part of the introductory video, and these are strophe and caesura. If you want to know more detail, I'd recommend that you go to the Poetry Foundation website that I've listed up here, and I'll put it in the comments. Remember when we said in engine number 9, would you want your money back? Yes or no? My mother said to pick the very best one, and you are not it, right? In these pieces of that little children's rhyme, you actually stamp your fist on the other person's fist, or you point at their foot with almost every syllable. This technique is called a strophe, and it creates an effect not unlike banging on a drum a bunch of times, and it creates a sense of emphasis. Listen, this is important. Here be giving you strophes. The caesura is actually the opposite of the strophe. In a way, the caesura is the pause. So, for instance, when you are speaking to somebody and you say, "Oh no, what's going on?" That pause between "oh no" and "what's going on" is actually a caesura. To sum up, In Western poetry, rhythm is made up of stressed and unstressed syllables. The most common patterns of rhythm are duplets and triplets. Strophes are multiple stressed syllables in a row. Caesuras are pauses. And the reason that a poet employs a consistent meter is that doing so allows the poet to highlight particular areas. In the next video, which will be devoted to assonance, alliteration, and rhyme, we'll talk about the importance of consistency and similarity in creating poetic meaning. Bye!